Hey everyone, my name is Yatuzo with DNB Academy, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to creatively use sample packs to make your own tune sound a bit more interesting. So without further ado, let's get into the program. I'm just going to continue here into a new project that I had, and we're going to start building it together just so you guys see what kind of steps that I take to use the samples and how I creatively kind of like warp them and chop them up to make my own variations. So right now I kind of got this standard and simple loop going. So we're going to be adding some hi-hats, making the loop a bit more interesting, and then we're going to move on to adding some basses. So first thing that we're going to do is just duplicate the loop so it's a bit longer, and we're going to add some kick variations here, just so it's a bit more interesting. So let's go ahead and open a hi-hat up. And I'm going to make this a bit shorter here. Cool. So we're going to duplicate this again, and then I'm going to add another variation here at the end. So maybe, I don't know, like a filter. So maybe, I don't know, like a reverb on the last snare. Delete this last kick here. Cool. And what we can do now is just kind of add other hits in between, like the main hi-hat here. So we can just lower this in volume a bit more, just so it's a bit more subtle. And I'm going to repeat it like that. Cool. So it's just going to be like a minimal kind of experimental tune. So I'm going to get all the hi-hats that I have here and group them into a tops bus. I'm going to grab the kick, rename it so I have everything tidy, main kick, main snare, tops bus. And just from early on, just to have everything kind of like, color coded and so I can easily find the layers that I'm looking for. So now that I've got kind of like this minimal and experimental kind of like drum loop, I can actually start adding some tops or some percussion even. So let's just look for some tops to add here. This is a pretty cool one. So let's just add these like splashy tops here, lower them in volume, and what I like to do is just kind of loop it into a point that I like. So I'm just going to grab this bracket here, and if you have the loop button turned on, it's just going to loop wherever you choose it to. Cool, so I'm just going to delete it on the first kick. And on the last one. And on the last kind of snare hit here. So now I've got two empty spaces where I can add another type of percussive element or a hi-hat or cymbal. And maybe I can actually reverse this one. And now that we've got like the snare that and for the snare, we can actually layer it with another clap. So let's go ahead and fade in first initial bit here. And just make this a bit shorter. We can also add some auto pan to the rides. So let's go into audio effects and search for the auto pan, and we'll put it onto like the cymbals, and we'll put it onto the cymbals, and we're going to put the rate to 90 and the phase to 0. And we can just play with the amount to see which kind of works best. And this kind of makes it a bit more gritty. So now that we've got our kind of essential drum loop, we're going to go and put all these other top layers onto the tops bus, and it's going to be our clap layer, and just maintain everything as tidy as possible so that later on you don't have a hard time finding the individual samples that you have layered on top of your drums. So now what I usually like to do once I've got this drum loop going is going to start playing with some basses from the sample packs. And I'm going to be showing you how I would usually go about like resampling these basses and using these basses creatively out of the pack so that you can make them your own kind of version. So let's just go into one of these packs here and search for some basses. I usually like to choose some similar sounding basses, and then I'll try to actually blend them in together. So for now, let's just try to search for some sounds that we like. Cool, so some of these are nice. Let's just try to select a couple that we like. Cool. So this is another cool one as well, and I'm just gonna chop them up and have them in different types of sections. So what I'm gonna do here is just kind of like look for the place that I really like the sound coming in. Cool. This is another cool one. And so now once I've got a couple of bass samples kind of loaded in, what I like to do is move it a tad bit next to the kick, and I'm going to press Control and Shift till this little kind of like glove icon appears, and then this is going to allow me to kind of scroll through the sample and see which moment kind of works best for the placement that I've put in. I'm going to put this one on the snare now and kind of repeat the process. And maybe grab this other one and put it on there, but we're going to fade it in to each other. So Just kind of layering the samples together, just how we've done with the drums, just to kind of make, you know, the riff or kind of like bass loop that kind of sparks interest in us. Put some reverb on this last one, and I believe we're missing like another one here in this section. Let's try this one. So we can do the same kind of trick that we've done here and just kind of fade them into each other. It usually works best if they're in the same note, and these are kind of like in similar range, so it kind of does work. And we can also kind of surf around this loop and see if there's any better options. And for the variation now, it's a bit easier because like now we can just scroll through the sample and try to find a place that works best. Alright, so it's kind of like the same placement, but a small variation will kind of make it a bit more interesting, you know. Just repeat this over as well. Or maybe even just by removing that, making this one a bit longer, make it interesting as well. We selected both of these samples, we could also kind of switch the position of it and thus for making a different kind of like variation of that bass sound. Just by putting a different bass here, we can play around in the same way and kind of look for the perfect time for it to come in. So I think it kind of works, but if we just duplicate it once more and just have this one like at the end of those 5 measures, then we can just duplicate this first part so it kind of flows and repeats, and then the last one would be the variation. And if this was a longer kind of sample, then we would be able to do the same kind of trick here by moving the position of that sound. So maybe we can put another sound there instead. cool because then you can later grab kind of all the samples all together and do the same trick here just to see like where would be like a time that work like better, or make another variation that can actually sound good. So just by clicking and dragging and selecting all of the regions of the samples, we can then later Control Shift and move them all to the left or to the right. Like there is some fine tuning that you need to do, but overall it's a really cool technique to kind of make these sounds kind of vary. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed my video on how to creatively use sample packs and incorporate them into your track in an original way. So again, my name is Yutuzu with DNB Academy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.